Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. A while ago, a client came to me with a situation. He gave me the name of an online marketer, and he said that this online marketer was throwing people out of their courses if they didn't finish the course, if they didn't do their assignments. And this online marketer made it known up front. And this client had a simple question, and it was, do we throw people out of courses? Is this how we incentivize them to get to the end? And my take on responsibility is that the responsibility lies with the teacher. It doesn't lie with the student. And immediately there's this sort of pushback. It's like, wait a second, isn't the student supposed to be responsible as well? Don't they have to come at least half the way? In this episode, we'll look at it differently. We'll look at how to teach people differently so that the responsibility lies with you, the teacher, not with the student. We're going to cover 3 points as always. We might do this in 2 episodes because it tends to get a bit long. So anyway, the 3 points we'll cover are 1, a mindset flip. How do you design a course where the clients never want to leave? 2, the core understanding, which is that no one really wants your course and no one really wants your product or service. And the third thing is the importance of groups and how we create that safe zone, or how we should create that safe zone so that people want to stay there all the time. Let's start out with the first one, which is a mindset flip. How do you design a course where clients never want to leave? About a year ago, I was talking to my niece, Kira, who was just 9 at the time, and I said to her, you can draw and you can do all this painting and stuff, and she said bluntly to me, I can't draw. And Kira is like a rock wall. Once she decides something, that's pretty much it. And on the other hand, we have Marsha, and Marsha is 14, she's also my niece, and Marsha will go along with a plan because it's her nature. But anyway, drawing wasn't up there for Marsha or Kira. Marsha rated drawing and painting as a 5, and swimming, that was 10 on 10. In effect, in the teenagers' rating system, drawing and painting was very meh. 4 months later, the biggest highlight of the week is the drawing class every Friday. So what changed, you may ask? And the answer is not that surprising. It's called fun. From the very first session, the big idea was to have fun. Not to draw, but to have fun. They'd arrive on Friday at 6 p.m. and then the music would be blasting, and then they'd pour themselves drinks, they'd complain about each other's parents, they'd chomp through the chips and they'd dance. And the drawing class is supposed to be from 6 to 7:30 p.m. But we conveniently shove it into the last section, or we give them just 30 minutes to draw and paint. Now, this usage of time might seem incredibly wasteful for most trainers. A course, a workshop, any kind of training should be about getting the biggest squeeze out of the day. And yet, when you come to a psychotactics workshop, for instance, you'll notice that there are these enormous gaps between work. Take the Singapore sales page workshop, for example. The meeting room was on the 4th floor, and there was no coffee or tea available. As it was just a meeting room, there was nothing more. So to get our coffee, we had to descend 4 floors, go over to the other building complex, get on an escalator. 10 or 12 minutes later, we'd have our tea or coffee. The entire sequence of returning to the room played out in reverse. So when you consider 20 minutes of travel and 30 minutes of coffee time, that's a staggering 50 minutes of wasted time in a workshop. And just for good measure, we do it thrice a day, 2 coffee breaks and a lunch, which was even longer. Can you spot what's common between my nieces and what's happening at the workshop? Sure you can. It's all downtime and mostly fun time. To understand why all of this fun time is so important, you have to understand the want factor. And the want factor is when people say that they want something, but they actually want something quite different. Which goes to suggest that the clients who come to a workshop will tell you one thing, but they want quite something else. What's worse is that they don't exactly know what they want, at least when they start out. To test this theory out, let's ask a question. What do clients want when they attend a workshop? And the obvious answer is they want to get all the possible information. But let's say you were to give them not all the information, but twice as much information. Instead of ending the day at 4 p.m., you go on until 8 or 9 p.m. every night. And right now, even as you're listening to it, that doesn't make any sense. It seems horrible to have to be in a workshop like that where you're getting so much information. The clients say that they want to learn more, but when given that opportunity, they want to escape the room. They're focused on the exit sign. When they get up, when they move, that's when they're having fun. They talk, they move, they engage. The same principle applies to any group, either online or offline. A group in the midst of a course may assure you that they're there to learn, and indeed they are. Even if you're not just giving information, but you're imparting a skill, they still have to work super hard. Every day is a pain, and what you're effectively saying is learning is hard, learning is not fun, learning is practice, practice, practice. Is it any wonder that people simply drop out? Let's not forget this quest for fun. Marsha and Kira still paint amazingly well week after week and in barely 30 minutes. The students that come to our workshop come back time and time again, almost demanding another workshop as soon as possible. Clients that do one psychotactics course will then come back for a second one, third one, 4, 5 courses even. And the courses aren't cheap, they cost a few $1,000s. The question is, how do you design a course where clients never want to leave? Instead of trying to make them stay, how about creating something that is so much fun that they dread the thought of the course ending, even though the course has only just begun? This course design involves a great amount of preparation and understanding what clients really want. But the core of what they want is this. They want to have fun. What can you do to make it fun for them? Are the groups having a blast, or is everyone sulking in their own corner? What skill can you guarantee? With all the coffee breaks and the trek up and down, what we do is guarantee the skill. And this is the primary reason that clients come back. Anyone can give information, add more slides, throw more notes, put more videos, do all of that stuff. And this is why it's such a pain. Because clients want this specific skill, they don't want all this information. And to create this situation, you have to look at what's intimidating. What is driving people crazy the whole time? And then the opposite of intimidation becomes fun. When you have this breathing space in your courses, in your workshops, in your training, then they're not going from one to the other, but they're sitting there in their virtual coffee breaks and tea breaks and enjoying themselves, and then mastering that skill a bit slowly rather than quickly. You don't have to teach someone everything at one go. You can just give it to them in little pieces, and then they master it, and then they enjoy themselves. And people only have fun when they're in control, not when they're flailing wildly, wondering what's going to come next. And we're just racing ahead. Slowing down is one of the main things that enable people to have control and therefore to have fun, to engage with each other. They have to have time to do that. And that's what you are doing as the course creator, as the parent, as the teacher. Most trainers talk about the mythical concept of course completion. And course completion is a bit like finishing school. Yippee yahoo, yay, yay, yay. What's the point of simply going from the start to the finish? People want to have fun along the way. That's what they want to do. And if you design your course badly, your clients will be miserable. And then you have the bad teacher that's blaming the student. A good teacher looks for pockets of fun. All that dancing, all that singing, all that horsing around, that's what Kara and Marcia look forward to every Friday. And that's why they got interested in the whole practice of watercolors and painting. And that's why they're so good at it. Now imagine the other scenario where we just said, okay, sit here for 2 hours and paint and draw. And that's how most courses and workshops and training situations are designed. This brings us to the end of the first part, where we looked at how do you design something so that clients never want to leave. The opposite of what we were doing so far. This takes us to the second part, which is the core understanding that no one really wants your course, your product, or your service. When you think of a pregnant mother, what does she want? The labor pains or the baby? It's a pretty pointless question when you think about it, right? Then why is it that we all tend to focus on the labor pains as the main selling point? Let's say a client wanted to do an article writing course. Would they really want to do that? Would you want to put yourself through 3 months of discipline just so that you can write quickly and with confidence? What if you could have a fairy godmother and she could wave that magic wand and gift you the ability to write just like you wanted and without that dread? So you get the point, don't you? No one really wants your product or service. No one wants your book, your workshop, your whatever it is that you're selling. What they want is an end result, and that is very clear. And if they have to go through your book, your course, or your workshop, they want something else. They want to enjoy the journey. Now let's think of a long journey, shall we? Let's say you're flying all the way from Auckland to, say, Houston. That's about 15 hours of nonstop travel. The goal isn't getting on the plane, and definitely your goal is not to sit on the plane, which is why airlines make the journey a little bit palatable. So they keep distracting you with snacks and with endless meals, many meals in fact, too many meals. And that keeps most of us busy. And then if we're not eating, we're watching endless videos on our personal screen. The journey, that 15-hour journey, is tedious at best. But then take away all the meals, take away the TV screens, and what you have is just pure tedium. You're sitting on a bench, which you call a chair, like in those old bombers, and you'll notice that suddenly you're looking for a parachute. People leave courses because it's plainly not fun, and for it to be fun, the responsibility of the student must lie with the teacher. Yes, there are dozens of things to be done with regard to course design, but one of the most important things is to know your student. For instance, on a psychotactics course, there are participants that love to write long posts. In the article writing course, for instance, the assignment might be, okay, write an 800-word long article, but the discussion that follows might exceed 2,000 words. That participant might want to talk about their family, their challenges, what they did in that day, etc. And then there are participants that don't say very much. They do what they're supposed to do and then they're off. And as a teacher, you need to be interested in individual needs, much like airlines do. Even the airlines figured out that one movie doesn't suit everyone. If you flew anywhere in the early 2000s, you had to watch the same movie that everyone watched. And now it's personalized, isn't it? And the teacher needs to know, as far as possible, how to work with every student, how to make the shy ones more comfortable in the group, when to push, when to let things go. All of this is about making the journey more interesting. It's the journey. It's not the notes and the information. But if you believe that it's all about the content, and I'm the teacher, and I'm in charge, and you have all of this semi-pomposity, then you're off the mark, hopelessly off the mark. because the journey needs to be fun. The teacher needs to know as far as possible how to incentivize you as that individual. You have to be a better airline, and then you become a better teacher. You have to focus on the journey. How much fun can I make this journey? And that's how you're getting clients staying in there, because they're enjoying themselves. And I know we're talking about courses and workshops, but this also applies to books, for instance. If you're going to have illustrations, if you're going to have cartoons, if you're going to have little things that distract me along the way, then that is so much more interesting. And if you look at magazines, you know this to be true. So if you open a magazine, you start to see, okay, there are these little snippets right at the start of the magazine. It's not the whole big front page article that you're reading right at the start. There's this journey. As you go through a magazine, you realize that there is this journey. All these little bits and little bigger bits, and then the main story, and then jokes, and then some cartoons. And this is the way you're designing things in life. Whether it be a course or a workshop or anything, don't give me this constant blah, 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 because that's not fun. I want to entertain myself as much as learn from you. And that's what course design is all about. That's what incentivizes clients to stick around, to be part of the group, to interact with the group, to talk about stuff. It's fun. And this brings us to the third part. And I know I said we could do this the next time, but hey, there is time here. So let's keep going with the third part. And this is the importance of the group and the safe zone. Yes, you have a lot of fun just designing elements along the way, but one of the things that keep people going time and time again in a course is not you, it's the group. Let's find out how. Who's the most important person in an orchestra? If you said the conductor of the orchestra, you'd be right, but you'd also be slightly off the mark, and here's why. The conductor might choose the music, they may make adjustments, they may change the tempo, the phrasing, the articulation, and they will try to convey this vision to the performers. But eventually, it is the performers that make the music. In a course, a similar situation occurs. A trainer might believe that they're in charge, and really this is just overrated self-importance. The real force behind the achievement is the group. It's the group. And there's a pretty good reason why. But before we get to the reason, let's deviate for a little second to a horrible situation. Let's get to a group where there's chaos, a group where everyone's trying to get the attention at the cost of everybody else. A group that's not systematically been put together on the basis of male and female existing in new introvert and extrovert. In short, it's like having an orchestra where there are 17 trumpets and 1 violin. A group that's not carefully vetted is a recipe for disaster, and sadly, that's what most groups happen to be like online and even offline. The reason why orchestras make such beautiful music is because the group has been carefully picked. At Psychotactics, we take a lot of care to filter the clients that enter the group. And even when they're part of the course or the workshop, there's additional care taken to make sure there's a clear reason why every person is part of the group. And a group should never have more than 6 to 7 members. The figure that we've worked out that works really well because it enables the group to trust each other. And still, no matter how well a group is chosen, there's no reason to believe that they will work well together. We know that there is safety in numbers, and there should be safety in a group, but that's not the way a client feels. They almost immediately feel unsafe. They're in a crowd full of strangers. And that is a problem. That is a problem that needs to be resolved right away. So in a workshop or a seminar, this issue has to be resolved the day before, as in if you're having an offline event. A group that's too large ends up being completely pointless. Say you're in a group of 50 people or 100 people. Well, it's very hard to connect. You try to connect, but you can't. So what you've got to do is you've got to decide on group size. We started out with group sizes of 35 for offline events. And since 2015, the group sizes at workshops have gone down to 16. In reality, I thought that 35 was really small until we had 16 people. And that small number lets the group members get to know each other. And it's that camaraderie that starts on the day before the event, the evening before. Everyone meets at 5 p.m. and they're introduced to each other, and then they get to see their room, the room where we're having the event, the meeting room. And then they're told what to expect, and then we all go to dinner. And in recent workshops, we've pushed that evening to a whole day before. So in Brussels, the group went to the Tintin Museum. In Munich, we'll be going to the town center, to the museum, then for lunch, and finally for dinner. And at this point in time, that introvert amongst us is starting to feel a lot of pressure, which is like, oh, I don't like people that much. But most of the activities are designed for small sets of people. So the group might be 16 strong, but they get to know individual people, 3 or 4 people. And so the afternoon passes, and then we go into the evening and the night. And instead of a bunch of strangers walking into the room the next morning, the energy in the room is bouncing off the walls. It's one of friends meeting after a night out, and it's like next morning. And that's the first day of the workshop. This same kind of fun element can be put into an online course. Instead of rushing headlong into the course, we can delay that. We can say, okay, how can we start off this course really slowly? That's because people are in their unsafe zone. They have been systematically put in groups. Maybe you've done your due diligence, but they are still feeling, I don't know the other members of the group. I don't know what they do. I don't know where they come from. There is all of this lack of safety. And what you do is you design assignments that are incredibly simple. So they take maybe 5-10 minutes to finish the assignment. And now you've got all of this time. And so you start to interact with the members of your group. And that's what people do, at least in our courses. They'll be put in these smaller groups. You know, even if you have, say, 20 people in a course, the groups will be 6 to 7 people. And so you interact with the members of your group. You say hello, you introduce yourself, you talk about stuff. We give them questions that they can answer so they don't have to think of that as well. And it keeps them safe, keeps them happy. You know, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going in the right direction. You're giving that guidance, but they're having all the fun. And then they go across to the other side, and then they speak to other members. And eventually they will work with their own group. They're a small 6 to 7 member group. But what's happened is they're now relaxed. They're settled in. And you've done that by not front-loading it with all of this, oh, let's learn all this stuff, start to make notes, start to study, this is all boring. You want people to relax, to be like as if it's a reunion and the music's just starting. And you think, wait a second, what is all this group bonding about? Why is it not a waste of time? Why shouldn't we get to the work first? And it's very important because group dynamics are such that once you get to know and like and trust other members of your group, you don't want to let them down. The violinist may not have had much to do with the guy who's handling the cowbell, but once they've had dinner, once they've gotten along, now they're keen on seeing each other get to the finish line. You would think that they would take their lead from the conductor, and yes, they do. The conductor is important. They're the guide. They move everything along. But the smart conductor knows that it's in her interest to make the group trust each other. In a course or a workshop, when you're paired together, a group desperately wills and encourages their members to the finish line, to that completion point. And when someone feels like giving up, they don't feel allegiance to you. They don't feel allegiance to the teacher, to the trainer, but they feel allegiance to the group. They don't want to let the group down. A group that is built to work together trusts each other. They trust each other in such a way that you cannot get by just dumping 50 people in a room, whether it's online or offline. You cannot get by even dumping 16 people or 10 people or 4 people in a room. They have to somehow mingle, merge, have fun. There has to be that whole structure and design so that you can get that group to trust each other and have fun. And only a fool of a trainer would believe that it's all about them, that they're the most important of the lot. And it's this handling that creates a massive safety section, safety net. It's only when people are relaxed that they learn faster and better. And if you've done your job well, then they won't just be working on the assignment. Instead, they'll be talking about ice cream, their family, the movies, a whole bunch of other stuff. And the more they interact, the more they let their hair down. And there you start getting the results. You start giving them the skill. Offline in a workshop or a seminar setting, you still have clients in a room. In a weird sort of way, they're hostages because they've traveled a long distance, they've booked at hotels, etc. And it's online, however, when you can really test the mettle of a trainer. Because despite being in different countries, despite being on a computer, despite being different professions, that trainer now has to keep that group going right until the very end. And it's easy, very easy to blame the clients. It's a lazy move. It's the way bad trainers shirk their responsibility. Instead, a trainer needs to pay close attention to the 3 points that we've covered. So it's time to do a summary, and let's do that summary. The first thing is forget about throwing clients out of a course and forget about threatening to throw them out of a course, because that's not what happens in real life. If you don't do something, you don't get thrown out the whole time. That is just poor thinking, let alone action. So how about designing a course where clients never want to leave? This means that you have to have enough fun elements. And you have to look at all the points of intimidation. Where do clients get intimidated? And if you don't know where they get intimidated, ask them. Ask them and they will tell you. And then you go the opposite and say, how can we make this more fun? Just like we did with Kara and Marsha. They spend 3/4 of their time horsing around, playing around, drinking, dancing, doing all that stuff. And then the training is just one bit. And the results, they speak for themselves. If you've seen their work on Facebook, you will be astounded. What's happened is you've designed a course, a situation where clients never want to leave. That's the first thing. The second thing is the core understanding that no one really wants your product. Nobody really wants your course. If you could tap their head with a magic wand, they would be more than happy. They would like to write articles, they would like to draw cartoons, they would like to give a speech, they would like to do all that stuff without having to go through that whole cycle of, let's wait X number of months or go through this course. So if you have that understanding in mind, you need to make the journey more palatable. Airlines make you sit for 12 hours, 15 hours on a flight, and they make it more palatable. And if you have any doubts about it, get in an airline that doesn't give you any of that stuff, and you realize how long that flight is. So what you're doing is you're designing your course, your structure like an airline. Make it more interesting. And finally, it's the size of the groups. It's how you choose the groups and the safe zone. Once people are safe, once they're enjoying themselves, and especially that first section when they've just joined and they're feeling very unsafe, forget about all that stuff that you have to cover. Instead, focus on keeping those assignments really small so that they can interact with each other, giving them direction, giving them questions that they can answer so they can introduce themselves in a safe way, and letting them relax for that first week so that they get to know each other. And that's how you incentivize people. And it takes time to get your act together when you're designing these courses and workshops. Don't be in a hurry. We've taken our time We've improved it over the years. We've now been in business since 2000. So don't rush through it, but bear in mind that you're just the conductor, and the real force, that's the performers. They're the ones that make the music. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in psychotactics land. There are 2 self-study courses coming up. One is the uniqueness one, which is on the 8th of March. And then there's the article writing self-study, which is on the 5th of April. Now, these are quite in demand. And as you probably know, if you've been listening, is that they just have 25 copies. We just have 25 copies. And once those are sold, we stop. It's scarcity. We know there's urgency. We know. And we hope you're making notes and that somewhere in the future, you will run something of a similar nature. But for now, that's the 8th of March, uniqueness, and the 5th of April, which is the article writing self-study. If you want to get on the waiting list, then you have to be on the waiting list because we only sell 25 copies of these products. And I hope you're making notes about the scarcity and urgency because that's exactly what's happening here. So get on there. It's psychotactics.com/AW goodies for the article writing and psychotactics.com U goodies for the uniqueness. 5,000 BC members get first preference, you know that, and then we go to the waiting list. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? One of the fun things that I talked about in a previous episode was this WhatsApp group that we've created. And it's separate from the course itself, which is really weird because technically you should be able to continue communicating with your group members in the course and through messages and stuff. But WhatsApp just creates this other channel where they can talk about books they're reading, family stuff, funny videos, whatever. It actually legitimizes that fun element. So also look outside of your system. And this we have for the courses as well as for the workshops and for every group. In fact, now I've been running about half a dozen WhatsApp groups. It's not for everyone to run those groups, but that's what I do. But just so that people can have fun on the side, something you might want to consider. I'll say bye for now. See you in 5000 BC. Bye-bye.